And welcome into the Hard Count. It is Thursday, October 19th, 2023, the last one in history. Gotta make it a great one before we launch into the beautiful thing that is week 8 of the college football season. We have a ton to get into, as we do every single Thursday on this show. Give you our upset forecast. Don't look now, but if you tune into the upset forecast from week 7, we talked about 4 potential upsets. 3 of those ended up coming to fruition. So we'll give you our thoughts on that this weekend. Not predictions, but more so a forecast. If you were to have a picnic and the upset were the rain cloud, should you still have the picnic? That's kind of the vibe we go around with this. Also, a question I put on my Twitter page, at JDPakel. Yes, still calling it Twitter, not calling it X just yet. Maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. If we have 5 undefeated conference champions, that means Pac-12, SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, a conference champion that's undefeated from every single one of those. Listen, I'm not great with numbers. I was never a math guy, but I do know for 4 spots, you can't have 5 teams in there. Which team gets left out? We'll give you a breakdown of that and kind of how we see that whole thing shaking out. Got a lot of great responses from y'all on my Twitter page there. So I think some of y'all hit the nail on the head, and I think there's just more to be talked about. And the beautiful part about it is it will play itself out. I'd be surprised if we had 5 undefeated conference champions, to be real with y'all, but regardless, we'll jump into that as well. Also got to talk a little bit about the latest going on with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Jesse Simonton has a great article out over at on3.com. Go check that out. He kind of goes in depth on his thoughts on the matter. Like, listen, A&M, they got a bye week this week. Dropped their last 2 to Alabama and Tennessee, both winnable games. No Connor Wegman, but like, what's the latest with Jimbo Fisher? Because there's so much made about the buyout, so much made about what A&M has done on the recruiting trail and how much resources they have and the talent they have in that roster. Like, where do we stand with Jimbo Fisher, man? Bruce Feldman had something to say about what he's hearing in terms of the powers that be at A&M potentially coming up with the money to take care of that buyout. We got our thoughts on that. We'll talk about it and sort of unpack where we are right now. Also, final thoughts and predictions for Week 8. Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, Alabama. USC's in the mix right now with Utah coming to the Coliseum. Where are they at? We got some thoughts on all those games. We're glad to have you here. It's college football. It's only college football every single day of the year right here on the On3 YouTube channel. This is the Hard Count. I'm JDPakel. Hey, we're glad that y'all are here. We're glad that y'all are here. I say this every single show because I think it's important for us to kind of take a second and acknowledge this. Like, college football, at the end of the day, college football is fun. College football is beautiful. College football is something that we celebrate on this show together. It's kind of a break for a lot of us. It's an escape for a lot of us. Like, let's enjoy this. Let's not get too caught up in the week and what we got going on at work or at school or projects or internships, whatever it is. Like, let's just enjoy this. This is a celebration, so we're going to celebrate it together. We're glad you're here. We got a lot to jump into right now. Quick announcement for you. I hinted at this a little bit earlier in the week. I didn't want to say anything until it was final. We will be in Columbus, Ohio for Ohio State, Penn State. Cannot wait. Going to make the drive down Friday from Nashville, be in Columbus on Friday night. We'll be there Saturday morning. Like, it's going to be a movie. Enormous implications for the college football playoff. Tremendous impact on the Big Ten title race. Like, there is massive stakes, and I cannot wait to get out to Columbus yet again and see all y'all there. We were there last year for Ohio State, Michigan. Getting to be there for Ohio State, Penn State. The good folks from our Penn State and Ohio State on 3 sites will also be there. Like, cannot wait to meet all y'all there and see y'all there. Should be an incredible atmosphere. Football weather to the nth degree is what the forecast is saying at this point in time. All right, like we do every single week, got to jump into it. When it comes to the potential upsets on the docket for this upcoming Saturday, where might they be? To be real with y'all, taking a look at the slate, this is potentially the worst upset slate so far that we have had to this point in the season. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you were planning a picnic, kind of like I prefaced at the top of this live show, you would probably feel pretty good about keeping those plans outdoors. I don't think there's a ton of upsets to be aware of. Now, that could be the final last words that I say before we get just a ton of upsets this upcoming weekend. From where I stand, though, I don't think there's too much meat on the bone. Now, with that being said, last week, we did this same segment. And again, they're not predictions, just kind of a forecast. Gave you 4 games that were potential upsets. 3 of those ended up happening. Stanford over Colorado, Iowa over Wisconsin, and Pitt over Louisville. We had LSU and Auburn on that as well. That obviously did not happen. Not predictions, just a forecast. Without further ado, let's get into it. Texas goes to Houston. Texas was on a bye last week. Lost to Oklahoma the week before in Red River. Houston is a 22.5-point dog at the crib. Now, to be clear, if this were to happen, it would require a Texas meltdown. So I do not think this is going to happen, to be real with y'all. I just think it's worth watching the way that Texas responds in this spot. First loss of the season, had a bye week to kind of get out of your system. Did the bye week kind of cause Texas to sort of feel like they don't have anything they have to clean up? Was it kind of a reassuring bye week for Texas where it's like, hey, we watched the film, got that out of our system, got the weekend behind us, cool, we're back? Does Texas respond in the sense of, okay, now it's fight or flight, we got to win every single game the rest of the way? Because Houston now, not a G5 game anymore. Houston is a conference game for Texas. And Houston, don't look now, they just took down West Virginia on a Hail Mary last week. So they kind of got some mojo going. Dana Holgorsen got the boys revved up a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying keep an eye on that one. It's worth watching if you're talking about upsets this upcoming weekend. Air Force at Navy. Yeah, we're talking a little academies here on the program. Navy's a 10.5-point dog at home. Now, this has rivalry game implications. This has Commander-in-Chief trophy implications. And these are two teams that run the triple option. The reason why that's worth noting, one, we love the triple option here on the show, so that's the first part. The other part of this, though, is whenever you run the triple option, mistakes become magnified when they happen. So I'm just saying a couple of freak plays here or there for Air Force, if you have 1 to 2 mistakes, that could change the entire course of this game. Like I said, it's a rivalry game, so you kind of throw common sense to the side just a little bit. Air Force is favored in this game for a reason. At Navy, they're the better team. Coach Peterson was my high school coach. He's currently at Air Force. Love Coach Pete. But I think Navy is worth keeping an eye on in this game. Again, at home for the mids. So watch that one. Keep an eye on that one. Air Force also, I believe, at this point in time is ranked. You see a lot of those expanded playoff conversations starting right now. Air Force would be in that expanded playoff where we're starting this year. Should they win out, you would think. So keep an eye on that. I thought about putting Michigan at Michigan State on here. Didn't do it. I want to just mention it because it's a rivalry game. I think Michigan throttles Michigan State. I'm not even going to talk about it like it's an upset. It would take some rivalry magic for Michigan State. So, again, not really talking about that one. Just want to mention that one. I'll show y'all. I had it on my notes, and I just totally I just X'd it out. Just totally crossed the whole thing out. So, thought about talking about it. We're not talking about it, but Michigan at Michigan State is happening this weekend. Washington State at Oregon. Oregon coming off a loss to Washington. Kind of a letdown spot, just a little bit for them. Washington State also got throttled last weekend against Arizona. Did not see that coming. Didn't have it on the bingo card. Arizona, I think, is a better football team than a lot of people want to give credit for. How does Oregon handle coming off a loss? Similar to what I said about Texas at Houston, it would require an Oregon meltdown. It would require the Oregon psyche to be all out of sorts. But Cam Ward now, quarterback for Washington State, we say it every single weekend. If you got a quarterback, you got a chance. And Washington State has a quarterback. They're 20.5-point dogs in Autzen. I'd feel different about this game if it was in Pullman. I probably would like Washington State's chances just a little bit more. But keep an eye on that one. Dual threat quarterback in Cam Ward, a guy who can throw the ball downfield well. Just something to keep an eye on with Oregon kind of licking their wounds after that Washington game. And Washington State also kind of backed into a corner now, and how they respond coming off their loss. Now, Duke at Florida State is a game that we previewed already on this show. We think Florida State wins that game outright, but Duke, they got a good defense. They probably, at this point in time, I don't know for sure. I'm going to go ahead and say they don't have Riley Leonard in this game. How does Florida State respond to a quarterback they don't have a ton of film on? I'm just saying, if Florida State plays down to the level of their competition, like we've seen them do before, the Boston College game comes to mind. This one could be intriguing. I still think Florida State wins that game outright, like we talked about already on the show and how we broke it down for y'all. But I think Duke, with how tough they play defensively and just the identity of that team, being able to run the football is going to be a big thing for them. Just keep an eye on that game. Would not be surprised if that's close in the early going. Like we flipped to that thing at halftime and it's like, oh, it's 21-14 Florida State or something like that. Wouldn't surprise me. Regardless, we'll watch that one. Now, I told y'all it's a week where we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel here when it comes to this upset forecast segment. I don't think there's a ton to break down here. How about this one? This is for all the college football junkies. North Texas, plus 20.5 at Tulane, at a ranked Tulane, homecoming for the Green Wave. Now, Tulane should throttle North Texas, let's be clear. North Texas, though, they're throwing the football 35 times a game. They're scoring 34 points a game. Don't look now, but Tulane is not great against the pass, allowing over 250 yards passing a game. So maybe you sprinkle a little bit there on the points for North Texas. I'm just saying, something to keep an eye on. But I think Tulane wins that game. But that's one that I think is a little bit more intriguing than the rest of this pack. So I think Air Force at Navy is probably the one to watch for most closely in this forecast. North Texas at Tulane right behind it. But regardless, there's upsets every single week in college football, it feels like. That's the forecast for this upcoming weekend. Back to you guys for the news. Back to you in the studio. It's kind of what it feels like whenever we do that segment. Like we're just kind of taking a poll of what the weather's going to look like. Now, when it comes to the college football weekend, if you have been watching the show for any length of time, then you know that Prize Picks is bringing y'all the hard count today. And Prize Picks, man, they are for the people. They are by the people. Daily fantasy, safe, easy to use. I hadn't played until this year. Right now, I'm loving using it. It's a phenomenal resource for every single Saturday. Every single game is a good game when you got Prize Picks going on. So use code JD, 100% deposit match, up to $100 when you sign up. We got some Prize Picks plays here that I'm excited to tell y'all about. We got 3 squares. All right, last week went with a power play. Hit on 2 out of 3 of those squares. We're going to flex it this week. All right? Now, I feel really good about these picks. Famous last words, but I feel really good about these squares. Marvin Harrison Jr. against Penn State, playing against NFL caliber cornerbacks. Ohio State has shown they're trying to get Marvin Harrison the football these last couple of weeks. I think that continues. His number is half a touchdown. Go ahead and give us the more. We'll lock that one in. Roman Wilson. We had him as half a receiving touchdown. We took the more on that last weekend against Indiana for Michigan. They're against Michigan State this week. Roman Wilson, we're going back to the well. Keep the good times rolling. Good things happening for good people. We like the more on the half a receiving touchdown for Roman Wilson. Now, I hadn't really flirted too much with the fantasy score part of this whole operation with Prize Picks, just quite frankly because I'm not a big fantasy football guy. I'm in a couple of leagues, but I'm just pretty much picking college players and trusting whatever I see on the ticker with ESPN. So I'm not super invested there. But I saw this fantasy score for Nick Singleton, Penn State running back against Ohio State, 12.5. Now, granted, he'll probably share the load a little bit with Katron Allen, but they're going to want to run the football against Ohio State. Penn State is a 55% run the football kind of team. Nick Singleton, 12.5 points. We can get that. We can get that done. So we're taking the more on the fantasy score there for Nick Singleton, 12.5 fantasy points. Let's ride, baby. We got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to catch a touchdown. Lock that one in. Roman Wilson, also catching a touchdown. It's a rivalry game at Michigan State. He's catching one. Nick Singleton, 12.5 points with a fantasy score. We'll go ahead and take the more with that. Let's keep rolling. You say, JD, I say it every week, man. JD, that's a lot of mores. You really like the more in this one, huh? Yeah, we do. We do. We root for these kids to go make big-time plays in big-time stages in college football. Sue us, all right? Sorry if you don't like that. Sorry if that maybe rubs you the wrong way. Sorry I want Marvin Harrison Jr. to catch a touchdown. Sorry I want Nick Singleton to achieve his dreams of scoring a touchdown in the shoe. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, not sorry. Go ahead and use redeem code JD whenever you sign up. 100% deposit match, up to $100. Let's roll. Appreciate y'all locking in with them. Prize Picks. Just good people of the program, and just adding a little bit more spice to your college football Saturday. Pumpkin spice, if you will, as it is fall. Hey, appreciate everybody tuned in live. We're going to get to some of y'all's questions, thoughts, concerns a little bit later in this show. So go ahead and get in the live chat. Keeper of the Q, Nick Brake. We'll break it all down for you. No pun intended. Also, if you tuned in yesterday, you know Nick Brake, big-time kickball game. Big-time implications for the college football playoff as it pertains to the kickball. So kickball playoff, if you will. Big-time seeding implications. We'll ask about his game. I think you're going to want to hear about this one. All right. Let's keep rolling here. This is kind of a question that has become a little bit more fun to talk about as the season has worn on. We're in week 8, and don't look now, but there is a possibility now where we have 5 undefeated conference champions. Now, do the math. We only have 4 college football playoff spots. So let's just say we have 5 conference champions, all undefeated, 4 spots. Who's the team that gets left out? Well, I asked y'all on Twitter, at JD Piquel, got a lot of great responses from y'all. And I decided this was something that we probably should unpack together. Now, to be real, I don't know that we actually get this scenario. I'd be surprised if we had all 5 that were undefeated at the end of the year. But even so, if it were to happen, who would be the school that's outside looking in? Or the conference, rather, that's outside looking in. We'll break it down right now. Really quickly, though, make sure you subscribe right here to the On3 YouTube channel. It's college football every single day. This is the hard count. If you're watching this as a one-off video a little bit later in your day, this is from the live show. We do a live show Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern to get your college football week kind of revved up. A ton of content for you on Sunday, the morning after. Make sure you're dialed in here. There's a lot of other great shows that have college football content for you. We like to think that we are unique in the sense that we do college football content the way that you want to see it, the way that you want to talk about it. Like, we're the exact same. We're watching college football from 7 a.m. when game day starts, wherever you're at, all the way till Pac-12 after dark. Like, we are watching the same thing. We're dialed in, all right? So we appreciate y'all being dialed in with us. So, who could it be? Is kind of the question I want to go with as we talk about this whole conference championship undefeated conversation around the college football playoff. Let's just go conference by conference here. Could it be the Big Ten? The Big Ten, in terms of candidates for undefeateds, would be Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I'll just say this. It will not be this conference. This conference will not be left out of the college football playoff. Let's go school by school here. If Michigan runs the table and they're undefeated, they have probably 2 top 10 wins. Maybe Maryland is ranked towards the end of the year and you get a 3rd ranked win in there and then you play the Big Ten title game. Like, Michigan starting the year at number 2 in the rankings pretty much across the board. If you go wire to wire and you're the 2nd best team in the country, you're not going to get left out of the playoff. So there's that. Ohio State, you would likely have 3 top 10 wins should they run the table. Ohio State, Joel Klatt said this on his podcast the other day, and I 100% agree with it. Ohio State, if they beat Penn State this weekend, they probably have the best resume in college football. If they run the table and they beat Michigan, I think they have a case for probably the number 1 seed when it comes to the college football playoff. So Ohio State, Michigan, neither of those teams are getting left out. Penn State, they would have 2 top 3 wins. Yes, 2 top 3 wins if they run the table, likely. And they would have a Power 5 win over West Virginia. So, as it stands right now, the Big Ten, they're pretty much locked in. Whether it's Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, any undefeated conference champ from the Big Ten, punch your ticket, you're in the dance. Now, the ACC is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Florida State, should they run the table, would have a ranked win over LSU, who was number 5 at the time. They would have a ranked win over Duke, which they played this weekend, the number 16 in the country right now. And I think the Clemson win has to count for something. Like, say what you want about Clemson, where they're at right now, and how that win ages. I think the way that they won in Death Valley, former ACC champ, like, I think that probably has to factor into some degree to their resume. Now, the other team that could be in play here for the ACC. Don't look now, but Mac Brown's got the boys rolling in North Carolina. Drake May, he's doing what he does, slinging the pill like a shady pharmacist. And that defense, we talked about it yesterday. We have them in our top 10 right now in the nothing but ball poll. And they're better. Like, that's the perfect thing that you wanted to hear if you're in Chapel Hill. The defense just a little bit better, allowing 21 points a game. If they run the table, they have a ranked win over Miami. Maybe Duke is ranked when you play them and beat them. Maybe Clemson is ranked when you play them and beat them. But in actuality, you probably have a world where both these teams meet for the ACC title. And in a perfect world, they're both undefeated if you're rooting for the ACC to get in. So, I'll say this. If either team makes it to the ACC title game undefeated, you feel pretty good about your chances. Now, I could also see, or I shouldn't say this, I couldn't see this happening, but this is a potential nightmare scenario for the ACC. If the ACC title game is a scenario where Florida State does not make it, meaning they lost 2 of the following 4 games. They lost to either Duke, Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami. Like, somehow they went 2-2 in that stretch, and they're not in the ACC title game. I think that puts the ACC in a bit of a predicament, because at that point in time, North Carolina's resume is a ranked win over top 25 Miami, who was 25 at the time, and then maybe it's like a top 15 win over, I don't know, Louisville. Like that would make me a little bit concerned. I think North Carolina is in real danger of being left out if they're the conference champ. Now, if Florida State runs the table, undefeated conference champ, they're not getting left out. So the ACC is a school that a operation rather, that I think is potentially on the outside looking in if it's not Florida State. So we'll circle back to that here just a little bit later in this operation, but that'd be bad news when it comes to the ACC if North Carolina were to win the conference and not play Florida State in the ACC title game, and they could maybe be left out. So we'll talk about that. The ACC is one that I don't see being locked in for the college football playoff, depending on the champion. Again, if Florida State runs the table and they're undefeated, they will be in the dance. Period, mic drop, the end. Now, for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is sneaky, man. Everybody told us before the year, if it's a one-loss conference champ, they're probably not getting in. Hey, the Pac-12, we'll see if they can do it. If they can find a way of getting in, we'll see. Like, it's going to be just cannibalization over there. There's one team still standing over there, and that's the Washington Huskies. Undefeated, just beat Oregon, a good Oregon team, mind you. Took them to the very last play. And if Washington runs the table and goes undefeated, they are in the dance. Not just because of Michael Penix Jr., not just because of, the Oregon win. Like, the resume itself would be phenomenal. They'd have a top 10 win against Oregon. They'd have a win at USC, and you would imagine USC, depending on what happens this Saturday, they're probably ranked. At Oregon State, probably ranked. Potentially they have 3 ranked wins plus a top 10 win, and then maybe another big-time win in the conference title game, depending on who they see there. So there's no chance that Washington gets left out if they run the table. So at this point in time, we got the Big Ten locked in. We got the Pac-12 locked in. The ACC is locked in if it's Florida State. If it's not, we'll see. The SEC is one to talk about because everyone's saying how bad the SEC is this year. The SEC is down. Bama's not Bama this year. What's up with LSU? Y'all, if Georgia runs the table and they go undefeated, they are not getting left out. Same thing I said about Michigan is true about Georgia. You don't start the year at number 1 and go wire to wire winning all your games, and then somehow you're on the outside looking in. Like, that's not a reality that would happen for Georgia. Now, to be real, Georgia also, if they were to win out, would have a nice little padding, I think, when it comes to the ranked wins department. They could potentially have 3 to 4 ranked wins plus whatever happens in the SEC title game. Bottom line, the SEC, you're not getting left out. So we'll keep on moving there. Now, the Big 12 is interesting. If the Big 12 gets a team into the college football playoff that's undefeated as a conference champ, it would be Oklahoma. They would have a top 3 win against Texas. Maybe, just maybe, you're rooting and hoping and praying for the good folks in Morgantown, West Virginia to get on the winning side of things consistently, and maybe you play them when they're ranked. I don't know. It's a big question mark. But this is where it gets a little bit tricky. The doomsday scenario is that you play Texas in the Big 12 title game, and they're ranked again, and you beat them, but Florida State has wins over a top 5 LSU, potentially a top 10 North Carolina, and then a win over Duke. The resumes, to me, I think favor Florida State if they're undefeated and Oklahoma's undefeated. Now, to be real, I do not hope this happens. I hope that Oklahoma somehow finds a way in, whether they're undefeated, whether they're not. Like, we stand Brent Venables on here. I would love to see Oklahoma in the dance. But if this is the scenario that happens, and you got to take undefeated Florida State versus an undefeated Oklahoma, it's not Oklahoma's fault the Big 12's down this year. It's not their fault that they don't have anybody in conference that's not helping them. But the conference play of the ACC to this point with Duke and North Carolina, and the way that that could potentially shape up for Florida State, should North Carolina play Florida State for the title game, and the non-conference win rather over LSU when they were top 5 in the country, I think you could see Oklahoma being left out. And that hurts me to my core. Sooner fans, y'all have been with us since the beginning of this thing. I would hate to see that happen, but I think they would be on the outside looking in because you have your 2 wins are in conference play against the same team, and you got a non-conference win, and you're an undefeated team in the Florida State that has more ranked wins. So that would, I think, give me some concern if I'm an Oklahoma fan. Now, to be real, if it's North Carolina, I think they're on the outside looking in from the ACC. Oklahoma goes undefeated. North Carolina goes undefeated. I think Oklahoma gets in over North Carolina in that situation by nature of what we just said. Oklahoma has better wins. North Carolina, their win is over maybe Florida State. Maybe it's not. But at that point in time, you're taking a top 25 win from Miami, and then I guess you have a top 10 win against Florida State. But at that point in time, you're like, hey, I got to give the nod to Oklahoma if it's me. So bottom line, I think North Carolina's in danger. I think the ACC's in danger if it is North Carolina. If it's not, if it's Florida State running the table, then I think Oklahoma would be the undefeated team that gets left out. So to be real with y'all, we don't root for this happening. I think college football will take care of itself, and we will have a couple of conference champs with one loss, and it'll be great. We'll get here on Selection Sunday and chop it up and kind of figure out where this thing should stand. I would also say this, though. The majority of the time, like 95% of the time, it's pretty clear who the top 4 teams are by nature of the way the records have, put themselves into a pecking order and the way these resumes shake out. I don't think there's a ton of controversy usually on Selection Sunday, and that's one of the reasons why we think that the 4-team playoff is just fine. But I digress. That's the way we see this thing shaking out. Get at me in the live chat. Get at me in the comment section. Let me know how y'all would see this whole thing shaping up if we do get 5 undefeated conference champions. Now, Oklahoma, for a lot of people, even Oklahoma fans got at us on Twitter and were like, hey, man, if it happens this way, we're a little bit nervous. A little bit nervous. Again, I think North Carolina would draw the short end of the stick if it were to be North Carolina. We don't think it will be North Carolina in terms of the team that wins the ACC. We've been wrong before, but that's kind of where we fall on that matter. But again, think it all will sort itself out. Hey, appreciate everybody tuned in live. If you could hit that thumbs up icon under the picture and get us over 100 likes for this show. If everyone were to hit that icon right now, we'd be well over 100, and the good times will keep rolling. And we would appreciate y'all for that. Now, a place where the good times are not currently rolling is Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they got a bye week this week. Lost to Bama, lost to Tennessee 2 consecutive weeks. Both games, to be real with y'all, if you're in College Station, you felt like were pretty winnable. Yes, Connor Webman goes down for the year, and maybe those games look differently if you have better quarterback play. It's kind of becoming a conversation again around Jimbo Fisher and that buyout and what he's done there and the missing of expectations. Like Jesse Simonton has a great article on on3.com about this whole situation. He goes in depth about the buyout and about what he's hearing in regards to, boosters and what's being said over there. So go check that out. Great article by Jesse. When it comes to the frustration at Texas A&M, the frustrating thing is that the equation and the formula that you've been asked to have in College Station to be successful is there. Everything you need to be successful is there, on paper at least. Hey, got to be a top 5-ish recruiting operation. Can you do that? Yeah, no problem. Pretty consistently outside of this last cycle, A&M been in the top 5, top 3 even. Done. Hire an offensive coordinator. That was what they were saying, right? Hey, hire an OC. Jimbo's not getting that done. Bring somebody else in to get this thing rolling. Okay, great. Bring in Bobby Petrino. Offense has been better. Last couple games, not nearly good enough. Bring in a really good head coach was what they would have told you, right? Hey, bring in a head coach that's in the top tier-ish of college football, preferably one that has a national title to his name because there's only so many of those out there. Awesome. Bring in Jimbo Fisher, won a natty at Florida State. Surely he'll bring us a natty here. Did that. That's been checked off. Got to have the resources. Hey, will you put into this operation as a football program? Will you give us what we need financially? Facilities, NIL. Can we get that done? Because we got to have that to compete at the level of Alabama, Georgia. Done. Got it for you. No problem. All the boxes are checked. And it's not that we're not seeing an output at all. We've seen some output over the course of Jimbo Fisher's time at A&M, but you're not seeing the output that reflects the amount of input from Texas A&M. So that's the frustrating thing. Like if you're a Texas A&M fan, you're like, what more can we do? What's the major gripe here? What's the thing that we're actually missing? And at some point in time, when you have all the ingredients, you look at the chef. And it's unfortunate. It's not a reality anybody thought we'd be in at this point in time when Jimbo Fisher became the head coach at Texas A&M. But I think that's something that you have to have a real conversation about. When you have everything you need to succeed, who does the blame fall on? The person putting it together. And I don't want to oversimplify this. I think there's a lot that goes into recruiting these days and having the right personnel and putting a culture together, I think has never been more difficult in modern college football. But like any other circumstance where you don't have the buyout that Jimbo Fisher has, I think A&M would have moved on by now. So that's kind of the thing that we got to talk about, right? And that's the thing that Jesse Simonson talks about a lot in his article. The buyout for Jimbo Fisher, right around $70 million from this year to next year. Like I think it goes down to $67.5 million next year. Regardless, that's a lot of money, okay? Bruce Feldman from The Athletic said that the people and the powers that be at A&M are kind of starting to look at that and say, okay, can we make this happen? Can we kind of get these funds together to cut the ties if we need to, if we think that's what's best for our operation? And so I think that kind of becomes a question, like we sort of breeze past that buyout of like, whoa. Why do we have this buyout in place? How did we get to this point? Like, yes, Jimbo Fisher has underachieved based on what you've had in-house and based on how they've recruited and the resources and all that. But like, you still got to look at this and say, well, why are we having this conversation that's so difficult to fire Jimbo Fisher? Why is that buyout so large? To put it in dating terms, because that truthfully to me is how I think about head coaches in schools, A&M bought a ring on the first date. That's pretty much what it was. A&M bought themselves a wedding ring on the first date for Jimbo Fisher. Hey, it's going to be us together forever. We're committed to you. To show you we're committed, we're buying a ring on the first date. We're giving you a ridiculous buyout right when we hire you. Well, Jimbo Fisher knew that as well. Jimbo Fisher knew that A&M was committed to him. And so now that it's not working, now that we're several dates into this thing and we're kind of on the doorstep of like, hey, we should be talking about, some hardware at this point, should be talking about conference titles, national titles, something like that would be nice at this point in time. It's going to make for an awkward conversation. It's going to make for potentially like a messy breakup is what it feels like. And so do we need to go to that route? Do we need to go to that point in time where it's going to be the messy breakup lane? Like, do we need to go down that path? I don't know. And I think some of that is a thing that you got to ask yourself if you're a Texas A&M fan. I know the powers that be at A&M are asking themselves that question right now. To be clear, still a lot of season left ahead of them. They play South Carolina. They're at Ole Miss. They play Mississippi State, Abilene Christian, and LSU. So in theory, they could finish the year at 9-3. And if they go 9-3, then everybody's kind of trying to do the whole toothpaste, put it back in the tube kind of conversation and say, okay, well, hey, 9-3 with a backup quarterback, and we recruited well. We got more talent on the roster coming back. Like, hey, we could be okay here. If you go 8-4, say, okay, I don't love that. I think 8-4, to be real with y'all, would buy him another season. After going 5-7 last year and having a 3-win improvement and seeing a slight upward tick, it would be frustrating because you're like, man, we've lived 8-4 for a while now. When are we going to get over the hump? It would feel like another year is warranted at that point in time. Now, if you go 7-5, I think you have to really ask the question like, hey, where is this going? Because at some point in time, and we can probably talk about this transparently, at some point in time, like, is this relationship going anywhere? Right? At some point in time, what's best for both parties? Because Jimbo Fisher just kind of being strung along of like, hey, man, 7-5 ain't going to cut it. You're not getting it done. We've had mediocrity here for the last couple of years. We had sub-mediocrity last year. Like, where's this thing going? Is the writing on the wall? Is it better to extend this thing for another 1, 2, 3 years because we got a ring for you and it's going to hurt our wallet? Or is it best for us kind of just to cut ties and go our separate ways, shake hands and say, hey, wasn't a fit. We thought it was going to be great. We thought it was going to be forever and national titles. You thought the same thing. That's why we bought a ring on the first date and got you this crazy buyout. But the reality is sometimes it just doesn't work. It makes all the sense that it should work on paper, but the results don't reflect that. And so at this point in time, you're like, hey, maybe, just maybe, we save ourselves the heartache of the next 1 to 3 years and this conversation. And I promise you, Jimbo Fisher doesn't like hearing all this conversation around him and what he hasn't done at A&M. That's not benefiting Jimbo Fisher. He doesn't appreciate that. He wants to win. He wants to earn that money that A&M is paying him. And so at some point in time, just like I was saying a second ago, we have to ask what's best for both parties. And I think if you go 7-5, if that's the conversation we're having at the end of the season for A&M, then I think it'd be very difficult to not rip the Band-Aid off. Then I think you say, okay, hey, we appreciate you, but we got to go separate ways. So that's how we feel about it. Jesse Simonton has, like I said, a great article at on3.com. Go check that out. He goes pretty in depth and gives his thoughts on it. I won't spoil it. I'll let y'all read the article, but great stuff from Jesse and something that we just kind of have to talk about now with Jimbo Fisher, and it's unfortunate. It's not fun. Listen, this show, man, we rarely to never call for a coach's job. Like, there is so much that goes into being a head coach in college football. It is just, in a lot of ways, it's irresponsible and ignorant to call for a coach's job because of how much they have going on behind the scenes and how much pressure is on them. But at some point, like, the results are just undeniable. We're not calling for his job. I'm saying I'm calling for a conversation if we go 7-5. So that's where we stand on that matter, and we're going to see how it plays out. A lot of ball left to be played in College Station. Big bye week for the folks down there in Brazos County. All right. As we do every single week for the weekend, rather. Final thoughts, predictions for Week 8. We gave you our picks in all of these games this week already on Tuesday as our prediction show, so make sure you tune into that if you're not already. That's when we pick these games. I want to go game by game here, or team by team rather, for some of these big games, and just kind of tell you what I think needs to happen, give you our thoughts, some of them are predictions, as it pertains to the big-time matchups in Week 8. Ohio State, Penn State. I already told y'all, we are going to be there. I cannot wait. Should be an incredible atmosphere in the Horseshoe, somewhere I've been before and somewhere that we love to go. It feels like if you were to drop the perfect Big Ten environment, granted, I haven't been to some of these other big-time places, but Ohio State is just like exactly in your mind the archetype of what a Big Ten electric atmosphere should look like. They do it right over there. Can't wait to get to Columbus. I think for Ohio State in this game against Penn State, I think you really need to have Cade Stover make a big impact. Tight end for them. He's on the Mackey Award watch list. There is a lot of attention going to be given from Marvin Harrison Jr. Deservedly so. Best player in college football, probably not named Caleb Williams, like Brock Bowers in that conversation as well. Marvin Harrison Jr. should get a fair amount of attention from the secondary with Penn State. So when that happens, with Marvin Harrison Jr. being out wide, what does that mean? It means the safeties probably playing a little bit more generously over the top to Marvin Harrison Jr. When that happens, what does that mean? More real estate in the middle of the field for Kyle McCord to throw to. Who's he throwing to in the middle of the field? More than likely, it's going to be Cade Stover. So I think Cade Stover needs to make his presence felt, catching the football, and then on top of that, to double down on this statement, you need a big game from Cade Stover blocking as well. Because we've seen to this point in the year, Ohio State, they haven't been what Ohio State was the past couple of seasons where we're dropping back, throwing the ball all around the yard, scoring 40 a game. Like, it might be a little bit more ground and pound, physical approach, and Cade Stover, with what he does blocking, has to be a factor in that and contribute to that as well. So Ohio State needs a big game from number 8 on Saturday. I'm excited to watch it. I think he'll answer the call to action there. And, Cade Stover, need a big game from the boy against Penn State. Now for Penn State, I think when we talk about this game for Penn State, I don't think you can be the new Penn State and beat Ohio State with the old Penn State approach. And that can be simplified in this, like, Drew Aller, you gotta cut Drew Aller loose a little bit in this game. And I don't mean you got to throw it 40 times a game or, have Drew Aller go for 400 yards, but I think you got to let him prove that he's the guy to win you this game. Like, Drew Aller, as talented as he is, this is still going to be his first big-time spot. And I think to beat Ohio State, to do something you haven't done in a minute, you're going to have to probably have a different approach than you've ever had in a minute. And so it might be more timely. It might be just letting him take a couple shots deep when they're there. To be clear, when they're there, James Franklin, if you're watching, I'm not saying you just throw the ball deep blindly, because I know how he feels about that. But I think you do have to trust him a little bit to make those plays downfield for you. Because looking at the season when we were in like July, we're talking about Penn State and what they can be, and we're talking about could they beat Ohio State, could they beat Michigan? Well, your thought process around Penn State beating Ohio State came back to what you thought Drew Aller could be, maybe, might be, would be, should be. And Drew Aller, to this point, has proven he's trustworthy. He's a guy that's going to be efficient with the football, going to take care of the football for the most part. Like, are the analytics glowing when it comes to Drew Aller in terms of his, completion percentage all the time? Like, I understand where you're coming from if you have issues with him throwing the ball downfield, whatever. I think in this game, you got to cut him loose and let him prove that he is the guy that's taken Penn State to new heights and taken you to the new Penn State. So I'm excited to watch that. But again, I think Drew Aller can't be a first-year starter anymore in this game. Has to level up in a big way. Now, Tennessee, Alabama, also a huge game this upcoming Saturday. Andy Staples from On3, going to be in Tuscaloosa for that one. I know he's fired up for that. I'm fired up to hear his war stories from this game. If you're going to win this game, if you're Tennessee, I think this has to be the Squirrel White game. Like, I think he has the potential to be the cog that makes this whole machine operate differently. There's so much talk around Joe Milton, so much talk around running the football. If you want to make Joe Milton's job easier, win your matchup right away. Be an open target for Joe Milton to throw to. You want to run the football effectively? Throw the football effectively. Get Squirrel White involved. I think what Squirrel White has to be in this game is similar to what Xavier Worthy was for Texas against Alabama when they went to Tuscaloosa. They were going up tempo. They were getting the ball to him with movement pre-snap. They were throwing the ball to him horizontally and letting him get upfield. Like, I think it's feed Squirrel White this kind of game. I think he has to be the guy that's dynamic for the Tennessee offense to get this Alabama defense off balance. Would help Joe Milton, again, would definitely help the run game, and I don't think you can be one-dimensional against Alabama in this game, in this spot at home. Like, I think you have to find a way to, again, mix him up, get him off balance, and I think getting him the ball in space would be a tremendous start to doing that. Now for Alabama, there's been a lot made around Jalen Milroe being the guy in this game, what you need from number 4, throwing the ball deep and all that. Like, you can't throw the football deep if you don't protect Jalen Milroe. You can't throw the football deep if you don't have some kind of threat running the football. And so to me, Jalen Milroe is a big part of this game, obviously. To me, this game will be won with the offensive line. This is the offensive line's kind of game. You want to win? Got to have something throwing the football. Want to have something throwing the football? Got to protect Jalen Milroe. Can't have a 16% sack rate, one of the worst in the country. They got to step up in a big way against this fierce defensive front. If you want to win, got to be able to set up third and manageable. How do you do that? Running the football well on first and second down. Getting a push. Running for right around 4 yards a carry like they're averaging right now. Can't have procedural penalties. Can't have missed assignments. Can't have holds. It's going to take a really good game from this offensive line for Alabama to get it done. And we talked about them preseason being the engine to this offense. And they've been that at times, but like this is the game where you got to draw a line in the sand and say, we're at home. We lost to these guys last year. Got to help our first-year quarterback out. Like, we need this offensive line to grow up right now. Right now. So I think the Alabama offensive line is going to be the key to that game, and I can't wait to see how they respond because I think there's a lot of pressure on them to get it done at home in Tuscaloosa. Now, one more game I want to talk about, is USC and Caleb Williams. For USC, getting the loss last week at Notre Dame in the fashion they did, they got punched in the mouth. Like, it is what it is. Caleb Williams did not have his best game. We all saw that. I think Caleb Williams knows that. Lincoln Riley knows that. The whole country knows that. Now, here's the thing about getting punched in the mouth with good teams. Good teams respond. And good teams that respond are led by leaders that respond. And I think Caleb Williams will respond. And I think this is a situation where, with your back against the wall, this is the game where if you have some pride about yourself, you got some culture about yourself for USC, we see it in this game. Like, there is nothing more that you could add to this situation to get you to play, right? Like, pride kind of game where this team beat you twice last year, embarrassed you in the Pac-12 title game, coming off a loss where everyone's talking about what USC isn't up front and what they don't have defensively all season long. Like, if you want to silence that, you want to silence all the doubters and all the noise, you go beat Utah at the crib, a team that took care of business against you, like I said, 2 times last season. You make a statement to the rest of the country. Yeah, we got knocked down. We're still alive in this college football playoff race. We're still alive in this Pac-12 title race. Like, let's go. This is the game where you should give your best against Utah. They should be able to get their best against this team. So I think Caleb Williams, like I said, I think he does respond in this game. I think we do see him play a different version of football that we saw last weekend. And it's going to take the defense as well. I mean, I talked a lot about Caleb Williams there. The defense has to hold up their end of the bargain as well and be able to measure up in a very, very big way. There's no way around that. So, Ohio State, Penn State will be there. Can't wait to watch that one. Tennessee, Alabama. Huge implications on the SEC title race. And USC, man, in terms of the Pac-12 title race, like that's going to be, in a lot of ways, that's going to be USC's sort of draw a line in the sand kind of game as well, like I mentioned for Alabama. Same thing for USC with their back against the wall. So, that'll be fun, man. Week 8, it's upon us. We just got our final thoughts out there for the beautiful slate that is Week 8 of the season, and I can't wait to watch. I can't wait to be in Columbus, be in the Horseshoe, see Script Ohio, dot the I. Like, it's going to be a blast. So what we do every single time at the end of these live shows, if you're tuned in live on YouTube, this is how you contribute. Also, big shout out to y'all, over 100 likes. Y'all took care of business. Had never a doubt that you would. What we do on these live shows, we want to hear from y'all as much as possible. So y'all get in the live chat. Let us know thoughts, feelings, concerns. I'm sure we'll get some feedback on that Undefeated segment with the 5 conference champions, who gets left out. Let us know your thoughts. So get those in right now. We're going to answer those in an efficient fashion. As you're getting in the live chat, I'm going to read a quick ad, and we'll get right to it. All right? So the hard count is brought to you by the good folks at Game Time. Now, here's the deal with Game Time. They want to get the fans to the games. Like, they are for the people, of the people, by the people. And if you want to be at the big-time college football game this Saturday, you say, actually, I do want to go to Columbus. Actually, I do want to go to Tuscaloosa, but you decide, like, on the Friday night, Saturday morning, Game Time has got you covered, all right? They're clutch like that. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. That includes fall Saturdays. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets on all the sports and entertainment events. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Love that. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDCOUNT. This is crucial for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. A lot of people ask us, hey, how do I help the show? How do I boost what y'all are doing over there? Using those promo codes, whether it's Prize Picks or whether it's Game Time, that helps us tremendously. So we appreciate y'all in advance for doing that. All right, now, to break it all down, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. We say we're the People's College Football Show. You want to know why? Because we involve the people in the show. All right, so going to the live chat right now to chop it up with y'all, bringing in the producer, the best kickball player Germantown, arguably the planet, has ever seen, Nick Brake. Nick, we got a lot to get to in the chat. I would be remiss if we did not recap your legendary. Feels like a hyperbolic term, but it also feels like it fits just perfectly with what you did last night on the Kickball Diamond. Tell the people what happened last night. Big impact game for seeding in the Germantown Kickball League. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I'll be quick because we do have a lot of questions, but we were tied 6-6, top of the 6th inning. We play 7. We went on a tear. We scored, I think we won by 20, so we scored 20 runs when we were in the last 2 innings. So shout out to the team, man. I was 4 for 4 last night. I feel like I played pretty good.
Let's go.
Nursing a couple of wounds from a diving catch I made, but we're good, dude.
Let's ride. Let's ride. You know what, Nick? You are exactly like a woman who's married. You want to know why?
Why is that?
Because you ain't miss.
Oh,
you ain't miss.
Wonderful.
I was hoping for a better reaction. I'm not gonna lie to you. I kind of had that one keyed up, and I was pretty excited for it.
Nice.
But
well,
regardless, I'll try again next
man.
week. Hey, big time though. Big time by you.
Absolutely, and everyone, I apologize. There was a spammer in here earlier doing some bad stuff. That should be a warning. If you're going to spam inappropriate content, abusive content, you will get banned.
Let them know, Nick.
That person will not be coming back to our show.
Laying down the law.
So with that being said, my friends, I'm going to get to these questions. I'm going to start with Gavin. Yo, JD, if Georgia and Alabama were to play today, who do you think would come out on top?
I'm taking Georgia in that one, man. I'm taking Georgia in that one. We said it yesterday. Doesn't it feel like Georgia needs a little bit of something to chase? Like we talked about them being like an apex predator a couple Sundays ago. Like they don't want their food handed to them. They want to go out and chase something, want to go get after it, and want to go, hunt. And we've seen that now twice in games they were down, where they came back in a big way against South Carolina, against Auburn, go and put a ranked team in front of them. They absolutely throttle Kentucky. I think Georgia now, too, with Brock Bowers being injured, I think Kirby Smart, one, hates that his best player is injured. That's the first part. There's no positive spin on that. But I do think he's saying, all right, hey, it's going to take everybody now. If you were lifting 20s before, you need to lift in 30s. We're going to need this whole operation to kind of, muster a little bit more mojo to get this thing headed the right direction. So that's how I feel about it, Nick. I think that they're gonna be a team that rolls, and I think they end up beating Alabama if they played today. We'll see if they play in the SEC title game, but I would take Georgia today.
Absolutely, good call. Brad Smith says, "Liked your joke, JD."
Hey, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that.
Brad Smith, there we go. Next question. This one's from Evan. One of Penn State's defense and analyst is McCord and Harrison Jr.'s head coach from high school. Could this be a secret weapon in the game? That's really cool.
Is that factual?
Look, I fact-checked Evan yesterday. Evan didn't like it.
Okay.
And it turned out to be true, so I'm going to trust Evan.
Dude, we'll trust him. If that's the case, that's hilarious.
It's really
Two,
crazy.
I wonder how much they were going to him during the week and like, hey, what does Kyle struggle with? Hey, how do we get Marvin Harrison Jr. out of his mojo? To be real, I just think that you just got to pray when you play Marvin Harrison Jr. They got two really good corners, though, in Johnny Dixon and Kalen King. But, yeah, man, I mean, I don't know that that'll have a tremendous impact, but it is an interesting nugget that we can return to here if things break Penn State's way in, like, an alarming way. Mm-hmm. Like Marvin Harrison Jr.'s held to 2 catches. It's like, whoa, hey, the defensive analysts have a little something to do with that? Do we have a little home cooking going on? So
yeah,
I'll go ahead and say it's probably a marginal factor. Yeah, I probably wouldn't read a ton into that, to be honest with you, Nick.
I can confirm it. Evan said to look it up, and it's very true.
Okay, Evan. Hey, we're not trusting Evan. We're just trying to be a professional operation over here.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jay Floyo 11 always asks the same question. Always gets mad when I don't ask it, and then a lot of times I'll paraphrase it and I won't ask it verbatim. So this time I'm going to be very verbatim about their weekly Brian Kelly firing question.
Oh, man. Brian Kelly's not getting fired. Brian Kelly's definitely not getting fired,
but
especially with how they're playing right now.
This one's different. This one's a little different. Who gets fired first, Kelly or Freeman?
Wow. Neither? I don't know. I mean, shoot. Yeah, I don't think either one of them is even close to the hot seat. Like, I think they're both probably chilling right now. Yeah, I would say neither. Is that a diplomatic enough answer? I don't see a way where either of them get fired anytime soon.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the consistency, though, from our guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 4 more. Is that good, JD?
That's great,
we're
man.
pretty
Yeah,
light right now, so we're good.
Let's do it.
Reed Shannon says, I'm a bit of a homer question here, which is, Reed deserves to ask a couple homer questions because he usually asks very, very good questions, but this one is good nonetheless. Do you think the last year's Tennessee team would have a chance at winning the SEC in this year's SEC? Healthy Hendon Hooker.
That's a really good question, man. I'll say this. I would like them more this year than I did last year. And last year they had a real shot to do it. You probably feel better about that game in Athens where you played last year. I mean, this year it goes to Knoxville. So you play Georgia without Brock Bowers probably if we're, going to go ahead and be conservative in his timeline. So, yeah, I think Tennessee has a very real chance if last year's team were still there to play for the SEC title. So that's a fun hypothetical. But, yeah, man, I would say yes, actually. I would love the schedule for Tennessee. Now, I guess you go to Bama, so that's a little bit more tricky. But, I mean, I think they're probably liking their chances against this Bama team, too, without Bryce Young. So, yeah, that's a fun one to unpack, but probably not super fun for the good folks in Knoxville to have the whole woulda, shoulda, coulda conversation. But I'll say yes, emphatically yes.
Okay. Let me get to this question. We got North Carolina goes undefeated and meets an undefeated Florida State in the ACC championship and beats them. Now, with that being said, that's the question, or that's the statement.
Okay.
And then asks you. That's their take, but they say, okay, do you think that can happen? Do you think North Carolina can run the table in the regular season and beat Florida State? I'm calling it now. Yeah. That's what our commenter says.
He's calling his shot?
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this is if North Carolina rolls all the way to the ACC title game, there's some factor of like momentum that's baked in there. And if you just put Drake May out there on the field against Florida State, like I don't know what happens, to be honest with you. I'd probably still lean Florida State by nature of how complete that football team is. But if Florida State and North Carolina meet in the ACC title game, like I think if North Carolina wins that football game and they get some stuff happening around them, like they could very well find themselves in the college football playoff. So Drake May, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance. We'll say that till we're blue in the face. But I still think Florida State's probably the team that would win that conference, and I think would win that game.
Okay. 3 more questions. I got to ask this one because there's a super chat.
Love it.
Sandstorm Show. Who gets fired first, Dabo Swinney or Garrett Riley?
Man.
Thank you for the super chat. What do you think, JD? I can't imagine that happening either way.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough whenever we get these potential firing questions because we said earlier, like, yeah, we just don't like to talk about people getting fired because, quite frankly, it's a little bit speculative, and unless we see something concrete, I will say this: I think Dabo Swinney leaves before he gets fired. So, like a world where Dabo Swinney ever gets the axe from Clemson, I don't know that really exists unless we have multiple years of them like missing bowl games, or if they're multiple years of like 7 wins, like then maybe that conversation changes. So I guess by that logic, you would say Garrett Riley. But again, I think Garrett Riley should get some time. I think Garrett Riley is going to be a head coach here before too long. Like, I think he's a head coach waiting to happen. So it is what it is right now. It's not the year that you hoped you'd have if you're Clemson. If you lose to Miami this week, this conversation, gets a little bit more traction to it. But again, I don't think either guy is on the hot seat by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Man, only in college football can you be multiple games above 500 and people calling for your job. Gotta love it, JD.
Passion.
It is passion. Oh, it is. It's pretty incredible. This question is about college football, kind of in a broad sense. It's from Corn Dog. Hey, JD, I know we always talk ball, and I want to keep it related, but not including yourself. What are 3 top college football shows or analysts out there that you like to watch?
Oh, man, this is a great question. It's great because I think there is so many people that are just crushing it in terms of college football content, which is great because it used to be like you go to a news station for a long time and then maybe eventually some other network finds you and then eventually you find yourself there. Like, we have people in this industry right now that started in the new media sector and now are finding themselves with a presence with the way that, YouTube and digital media has allowed us to create content. So we appreciate y'all for making that happen. Man, Josh Pate has to be up there. Like, Josh Pate is a big reason, why I started doing content like this. I listened to RJ Young a lot for a while there as well. So I think Josh Pate is for sure up there. Dude, Joel Klatt, like, in terms of just guys that talk ball, like just purely like X's and O's, knows the game inside and out, is passionate about it, cares about the right things within it. He's 100% up there as well. So Josh Pate, Joel Klatt. And then for my third one, man, Greg McElroy, we've had him on the show before. I think he's phenomenal at what he does. Like, another guy who knows the X's and O's, just got promoted to ESPN. He has Always College Football, which is a great show as well. Check that out. So, like, those 3 guys to me, I think are definitely the top 3 in no particular order. Love all the content they do. Enjoy all the content they do. And if y'all love college football, along with this show, would encourage y'all to check those out. And yeah, man, that's the beautiful part about this is I think somebody also too is there's a little bit of an interesting piece to this. People think that, like, because those shows exist and because our show exists on the same platform, like, we're competing for views, and it's like, well, if I watch Late Kick, then I'm not watching Hard Count. Or if I watch Joel Klatt, and that's competing against Hard Count, it's like, no. If they do content and it helps you find us or it helps us find them, like, 1 + 1 actually equals 2.5 there. Like, it's a high tide raises all boats kind of thing. So we love everybody in digital media that's doing this right now when it comes to college football content that are doing it the right way. And yeah, would encourage all of y'all to check those shows out as well, as it just is, again, a thing that raises all tides.
Well, it's always, because JD is also super charismatic and loves college football. He's just trying to be Josh Pate. That's what I always hear. That's what we see every once in a while, every couple of months.
Sure.
It's very frustrating.
Which is a tremendous compliment to get. So
yeah, absolutely.
That, man.
But it is.
Heck yeah.
It's quite frustrating. So if you're going to think that, don't comment.
No, man. He's the man. Joel Klatt's the man. Like, just people that cover college football that care about it the right way and that are in it for, like, the clicks and the views and all that. Like, I mean, we talk about ball and only ball. All those people we just talked about, ball and only ball, and someone we co-sign to the nth degree, for sure. Man, for sure.
JD, we have so many questions. Dr. Dan says, JD.
Oh, we got Dr. Dan
ask
in here? Yeah.
my question. Okay, he asked it again, so I'm going to take it here. It's in all caps, so I have got to answer this. And if we could do 2 more, that'd be great.
Love it.
Because I feel like I'm brushing over a lot of really good questions that are being asked multiple times. But Dr. Dan says, Who takes over the Saban dynasty?
Oh, dude.
It's a good one.
This is hysterical that we're even talking about this because, like, Nick Saban keeps saying, I'm not retiring. I'm running my program. I'm not retiring. And it's like a thing where everyone's like, yeah, but what if he retires? So it's funny. It's like everybody is talking about a job that isn't even available yet. I get it, though. It is fun to dream. I think there's a couple of people that come to mind. And I don't know that they would leave their job for Alabama for this. And if you're Alabama, too, you can swing big. So I don't even know if they're in the conversation. Dan Lanning, by nature of what he's done at Oregon, I at least call him and make him say no. I would have said Dabo Swinney before the season started. He's an Alabama alum. I mean, has had tremendous success at Clemson. I know the last couple of years leave something to be desired. You probably give him a call. I mean, Steve Sarkisian was at Bama under Saban and had a lot of success there as the offensive coordinator. Like, maybe give him a call with what he's done at Texas. Now, again, I don't know that any of those individuals leave their current spots. I think Glenn Schumann at Georgia is someone that you look at. I believe he's an Alabama alum as well. Now, does he have head coaching experience? I don't believe so. So that probably I don't believe so. I know he doesn't. So that probably leaves a little bit of like, do we want to take a risk on someone who's never been a head coach before? I understand where that would come from, but all that's to say, I don't see them taking any of those guys. The Deion Sanders conversation is probably the most fascinating, just for the sheer fact that, like, I think there's a little bit more legs there than what people want to give credit for. Like, the talent attraction would be second to none, all the resources in the world. I think him and Saban actually have a pretty decent relationship from what I can tell, so maybe there's something going on with Saban saying, hey, take a look at Coach Prime. It's a lot of guessing right now. Glenn Schumann's probably the most realistic answer I could give you right now, and then Dan Lanning is maybe someone that the people in Tuscaloosa would be calling for. It's all speculation, but that's a fun question to ask. I love it. Good question by Dr. Dan.
Absolutely. Dr. Dan, thank you very much. I almost missed it, so appreciate you getting it in again. Man, so many great questions, JD. I feel bad because I feel like the last two shows I've skipped a Rocky Top Tom question. I'm going to have to again, because we're almost out of time, unless you want to answer two really quick.
Yeah, let's do two really quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Rocky Top Tom is as loyal a viewer as it gets. So I'm going to ask this one quick. If Penn State finally beats Ohio State, do they win out, or do they go to the playoffs, or do they blow it against Michigan? What do you think? You wouldn't be blowing it if you lose to Michigan, would it?
Yeah, I don't know if you blow it against Michigan. You would feel a lot better about your chances against Michigan because that game you get in Happy Valley. You probably have a little bit more confidence too. Like, hey, we took down Ohio State at Ohio State. We match up okay with Michigan, honestly, on the line of scrimmage. Like, Michigan's probably still getting the nod there, but it's something that you at least feel like you have a place where you can maybe make a stalemate more often than not. Yeah, it's a 2-game season for Penn State. Like, Ohio State this week, Michigan in November. That's the season for the college football playoff. Now, we've said it before, too. If they don't win out, we actually think they still find their way in. We think there's enough chaos going on with other conferences to where Penn State, as a one-loss team, could still get in. I think that one loss, you would like it to be to Michigan because of how highly Michigan will be ranked at that point in time. Like, if your loss is to the number 2 team in the country, are you really getting docked that many points with the committee? I don't think so. So I think Penn State, do they win out? Today, I probably wouldn't pick them to win out based on what we know about Michigan, but I think they still have a really good chance of making the college football playoff. But they got to split Ohio State, Michigan. Big time need to win against Ohio State this week.
Last question. Look, I'm so sorry, White Boy Magic, but I already asked one of your questions. I'm trying to spread the wealth. AAA's been asking questions, and I haven't gotten to any of them yet, so I'm going to ask this one. Actually, I'm going to have to scroll up quite a bit, JD. Okay,
good,
there it is. And you're going to have to help me, everyone in the chat, and JD, with this pronunciation because I'm a very casual college football fan. Can you see Kamani Vidal? Is that right? You know that? He's making the Power 5 jump and being a starting running back if he decides to transfer. Do you know who that is, JD?
I can't say I do. No, I'll have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, that's a super in the weeds. Junkie. Okay, so then I'll ask you this one.
I like it.
And this is something that AAA and White Boy Magic have been arguing about, so it kind of intertwines. It's about draft order. Is it going to be Michael Penix or Caleb Williams? Obviously, Drake May's there, but who would you take first?
I think Caleb Williams is just the undisputed heavyweight. Like, I've heard Pete Thamel even mention Michael Penix being like in that second round range and being a guy that maybe plays his way into the first round. Like, I think Caleb Williams has been the number 1 overall pick since last year. I've got a couple friends that are in the scouting world that have echoed that sentiment. That like, yeah, he's just different. Like he's a 1 of 1. I think he's going number 1 overall. Even if he didn't play this season, even if USC were to finish the year 8-4, I think he's still the number 1 pick. So I think Michael Penix has a chance to be a really good NFL quarterback. I wouldn't sit here and tell you I'm like an NFL draft or NFL scout kind of guy, but dude can throw the ball around the yard, and what he's doing at Washington should not be ignored at all. But Caleb Williams is Caleb Williams, and I think he's still the number 1 guy you take. It's a good question, though, Nick. Man, you're doing it all, man.
Yeah.
Kicking dingers, running the chat, producing the show. Like they don't make them like Nick Brake anymore. I wish they did, but they don't. You know?
Yeah, hey. I'm the 9th Nick Brake, by the way, so Nick Brake the 9th. So they have made a lot of Nick Brakes.
They've tried. Often imitated, never duplicated. You
Absolutely.
Know? Yeah. You know? Okay. Nick, appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man.
We'll do it again Sunday, and then we'll be live again on Tuesday.
We'll be in here bright and early on Sunday morning.
Let's do it.
I'll see you then.
The man, Nick Brake. And what we're alluding to, if you're new to the show, new to the channel, Sunday morning, we don't have a live show. What we do is, though, we get in here early as can be and start cranking out content from the day before. So we'll be fresh off the road from Columbus, Ohio, breaking down what happened with Penn State, Ohio State. We'll have a video for you on the channel from that game, actually, as soon as that concludes as well. So some Saturday love for you as well. Bottom line, everything that you love about this sport, we love about the sport too. And so we make content on that, right? Like we appreciate y'all being dialed in, appreciate y'all being a part of this operation, appreciate y'all subscribing, liking, all that. Like it helps us move this mission forward tremendously. And we appreciate y'all being a part of it. Can't thank you enough. Hey, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Back in here Sunday morning with more content, live next Tuesday for Prediction Tuesday. I'm JD Piquel. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.